right, good morning, everybody. Give me a cheers for America. Cheers. Good to see you all out here, Patriots. My name is Doug Billings, a host of The Right Side with Doug Billings. I want to go through a few logistics with you before we get started. First of all, we have what they call a QR code, and I'm going to give you a text number that you can text to donate to United Voices of Kansas, who have put this event on with the help of Kansans for Health Freedom. That phone number, if you get your phones out right now, I'm going to watch you all. I've got my eyes on every one of you. Cameras in the trees. The phone number that you can text to lend your support to these groups, 913-305-4344. 913-305-4344. If you text that number to United Voices of Kansas, you'll be able to make a donation and help support their cause. Now let me say something about United Voices of Kansas. They are a group. I've had some of their members on my show. I've spoken with them at other events. This is a group that has risen in this country to be one of the premier templates for how we, the people, begin to get involved in America. They provide you wherewithal and templates about how to get involved in your local level of government, school boards, etc. And I really want to take my hat off and say thank you. So a round of applause for United Voices of Kansas and Kansans for Health Freedom. They also have some t-shirt tables up here at front, as you can see. There is a first aid kit over here to my left. If anybody needs any sort of medical attention at all, please direct that person or come to see this group of folks standing to my left. If you need to use restrooms, whatever you do, don't go to that one over there to my right because it's out of order. It smells really bad. Go over here across where you came in, where you parked. There's some restrooms over there across the street and use those. Finally, water. On a day like today with high humidity, there's right below this tree here, closest to the stage, there's a blue tub that will have water in it for you through the day. And then up here, again to my left at the front of the stage, in front of this van, another group of coolers with water in them for you. So that's that. That's the business items of the day. So as we begin today, ladies and gentlemen, we are faced in a situation that requires that we understand we're in a spiritual war as much as we are a political war, right? Satan is real, the enemy is out there, and it's not a myth. That's real, and he is attacking, and we have to be united with each other on this conservative side of the fence, and in our conservative movement, we have to be united. We are all patriots on the same side, and although we might disagree about some of the nuances of our movement, we need to be united. So yes ma'am. So having said that, I would like us all to stand for an opening prayer, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Lord God, creator of all, we ask that you descend your Holy Spirit upon us and gather and mingle with us this day as we speak of freedom and patriotism and this republic for which you inspired by the writings of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and our Bill of Rights. Please guard us against the enemy, unite us in our faith, unite us in a belief in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, so that we may, with endurance and with determined patriotism, doing the hard work of it all, getting involved in our local communities, reaching out to each other in need, uniting even if we have differences of opinion on the conservative side of the fence. Unite us all, Lord. We ask that you protect us, that you protect President Trump, that you guide our government back to righteousness. We pray for those people for whom we find it most difficult to pray. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. Difficult to mention those names, Lord, but we know that we must. We are called to pray. We pray for all of us here. We pray for those that couldn't be here. We pray for all of those for whom we find love and hope in. Jesus, you are the way, the truth, and the life, and we seek to follow you always. Please give us the strength to continually build up your kingdom of heaven here on earth until that day we enter into your glory. Amen.
And we'll remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, again, my name is Doug Billings, the host of The Right Side with Doug Billings. Just a few words. By way of introduction, I'm a Kansas City native, born and raised here in Kansas City. Spent the early part of my life in the Brookside area, moved to Grandview back in the day, before it became a war zone. But anyway, we graduated out there and then moved to Olathe about 30 years ago. So I've been out there, and we do our show out of the house. We're on TV with Beck TV, BEK.news, and on DougBillings.us. We have 3 million people every month who watch the show. And so it's a blessing. 18 months ago, I was an HR executive in the healthcare industry. And I was furloughed because of the COVID-19 nonsense. So I had to figure out quickly what I was going to do next. And one thing led to another, and I'll meet me in private, and I'll tell you the whole story. But we have, on the show, made some incredible friends along the way, and I want to tell you a little bit about why I believe there is hope in such a dark nightmare currently happening in the United States of America. I have become, I've had the high honor of becoming friends with people like Mike Lindell, General Michael Flynn, Lynn Wood, Sidney Powell, and several others. In fact, I was just up in Grand Rapids, Michigan yesterday, with General Flynn on stage, where we spoke about what I'm going to tell you about right now. Look, the current state of America is indeed in a nightmare. And I understand that when we have something stolen from us, we want it back as soon as possible, i.e. the election, right? President Trump, if you haven't already figured it out, won the election in 2020, right? Yep. I made a bet with a high school friend of mine. His name is Stan. I can't tell you his last name because that would be indiscreet. Burton. Thank you. Stan and I were good friends in high school. We reconnected on social media. I bet him a bottle of wine that Trump would win the presidential election. Well, you all know how that turned out on the media and so forth. I interviewed General Michael Flynn a few days later, and I told him about this bet. And I hadn't planned to ask him this question, the general, but I said, General Flynn, do you think that I ought to give up this bottle of wine? Should I concede the wine to my friend Stan? And General Flynn, right away, without batting an eye or missing a beat, said, no, don't concede that wine. Hold the wine, he said, hold the wine. I had to have shirts made, I had to sell some shirts. Hold the wine. So you'll see every day on the show there's a bottle of wine that sits right back there because President Trump did win the election, ladies and gentlemen. He did. Now, we will see our way through all of this, and it's going to require that we give ourselves a blessing, right? We're going to have to continue to give ourselves the blessing of patience. This is not a situation that's going to, and I know, believe me, no one's more impatient in real life than me. I have zero patience. Just ask my friends. But we're going to have to be patient. Arizona is going to flip for Trump. You can count on that, but it's going to take time. They have already proven that fraud is fact, that the presidential election, at least in Arizona, was fraudulent. They've proven that. That's a fact. That debate is over. Now they have to have the guts to pull back their electoral college and their electors and flip those votes. We'll see. All right? Administrator Biden, he's not the president. Administrator Biden has cast this nation and this republic into a nightmare. There's no doubt about it. But any of you, and I would wager to say that all of you on this lawn, sometime in your life have been through adversity, challenges, and tragedies. And you've come out on the other side. And you've become better people because of those things. Those are how blessings are born, when we overcome adversities, challenges, and tragedies, really. In all of those things, those are blessings just waiting to be born. And this current nightmare that Administrator Biden has cast us under is a blessing waiting to be born. We've got to believe in that. We have to hold on tight. Our republic, contrary to what the media and this amount of people, the small minority of people in this country will tell you, our republic is not on its deathbed. We are a nation that is inspired and created by the hand of God himself. God has this won, ladies and gentlemen. He has it won. Give yourself the blessing of patience to believe that. Amen. God has won this thing. Now, we also have to admit there's some hard truths about us, about those of us on the conservative side. Number one of the failures of us, of our side, is that we have not been involved as much as we need to be at the local level, right? We have to admit that. This is the key reason. The key reason. Forget Dominion, forget paper ballots being handed out to illegals coming across the border. It's the key reason we lost the election. We didn't lose the election. The election was stolen from us. But the reason that it was stolen was because we weren't involved. Think about it. If we were involved, we would have had enough of our people in the meetings to decide not to use Dominion. We would have been in those meetings. If we had enough people, we would have been able to manually check those ballots and not be whisked out or forced out or bullied out of all of those election facilities across the country if we were involved. We wouldn't be talking today about the ridiculous, unconstitutional mandates of children wearing masks if we were involved in school board meetings and running those school board meetings as elected school board members. It's about getting involved. And since the time of our revolution, since the time of the Boston Tea Party, what you're doing, gathering, is how we take our republic back. Don't sell yourselves short about these kinds of rallies. This is exactly what we should be doing. If you're sitting back on the sidelines expecting the military to march in and bring President Trump back on flaming chariots, you're wrong. It's not going to happen. We have to we the people are the plan. There is no mystical other plan, ladies and gentlemen. We, the people, are it. Our involvement is the plan. Cheers. I love President Trump. I think he's the best president this republic ever had, including George Washington. I think he ranks up. I think the most important thing President Trump did was he pulled back the curtain of the muck of the deep state, and he said, look at that. Look at that. And they went after him, didn't they? And they stole an American presidential election because there was not enough of us involved. So my call to action to all of you, and I know that you're good God-fearing patriots. There are some of you that disagree with the fact that the military is a myth and there's not going to be any kind of grand reentrance. We have to work hard. General Flynn, I sat down with him yesterday and I asked him the question, General, are you just telling me there's no plan because you can't let the bad guys figure this out or because it's some sort of a secret mission that you're not allowed to talk about? And he turned his chair around and looked me right in the eyes and he said, Doug, don't ever suggest that to me. I'm telling you the truth, brother. We, the people, are the plan. America has always been about we, the people. If anybody out there thinks the military's in charge, look at Afghanistan. Really? Our military is huddled in an airport while our citizens are wandering through the streets trying to find a member of the French, or the British military to get their ass home. Excuse my language. Our military is in control of the airport in Afghanistan. That's it. So we need to really buckle down, take a good hard look at this. And today you're going to hear from some speakers that are going to give you hope, they're going to give you confidence, and they're going to give you inspiration about all of this. I hope that you realize that we have before us, ladies and gentlemen, the four most divinely inspired documents in the history of mankind, inspired by God himself. Who knows what the first one is? The Bible. Number 2, 3, and 4, our Declaration of Independence, our Constitution, and our Bill of Rights, all equally and wonderfully dictated and inspired by God himself. Cling to that and never apologize for that conviction, because all of those documents combined will lead you to the wonder, the joy, the meaning, the freedom, and the liberty that God intends your life to have on this planet. You've got to give yourself permission to believe that. Right? Yes, that's our Constitution. That's our way of life. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to be able to introduce to you Charlotte O'Hara. I just met her backstage. I've obviously, as all of you have heard of her for decades. Sorry, Charlotte. I have been admirer and obviously very thankful and grateful for her involvement, her patriotism, her service to her community. Her deep faith is important to her, and it shows. And she is really a woman of the people, for the people, and by the people of this community. You know her well. Ladies and gentlemen, Charlotte O'Hara.
Wow. Good morning. Well, as you all know, I am the commissioner for the 3rd District. And when I won by such a wide margin, I went, what happened? Because I ran extremely conservative, pro-life, NRA, against all of these tax giveaways. And when I looked at the tally, I went, there is a sea change. There is an absolute sea change. And I'll give you another indication of that. My good friend Mike Zinnigy, he won the primary in the Overland Park mayoral race. He won every ward. And guess what? Mike and I, both on our signs, had the elephant. We didn't bow down to this nonpartisan nonsense. We know that the first thing when you're going around knocking on doors, what's the first thing people ask you? What are you? What are you? So when I was running for mayor 4 years ago, I'd knock on the door because honestly, this is the truth. Most of the voters in the primaries in these off-year elections are Democrats. We've got to change that. And in Zinnigy's race, we did. And I'll get back to that in a minute. But I would knock on a door, and they were a Democrat. And they'd say, what are you? And I'd go, I'm a Republican, but you're going to love me. Because we come together on this issue of big, huge tax incentive giveaways to the big corporation. That, ladies and gentlemen, is called corporatocracy. And we are now at the point of it's costing us $44 million a year just on industrial revenue bonds. That doesn't include all of the other giveaways that's being given to big corporations. They want to talk about equal opportunity, then let's have equal taxation. We should not be subsidizing these wealthy people. It's wrong. It's wrong. And I was down in Edgerton talking against the big, huge tax giveaways to all of those monstrous warehouses. They're paying 16 cents a square foot. 16 cents a square foot. If you have a 2,000 square foot house, that means that your yearly property taxes would be $320. That's a deal, isn't it? And part of that goes into a transportation fund that builds their infrastructure. So we don't even get the 16 cents. It's just unbelievable what is happening. And so back to Mike Zinnigy. He ran hard right. We have to let the candidates understand you have to run hard right. Be proud of who you are. You will be surprised that some people that aren't with you on a lot of the issues, but they're going to go, they are people who are willing to stand up and fight for what they believe, and they're going to represent me and not the status quo. That is so important. And yes, you have to get involved. When you elect someone, it's not elect and neglect. You have to stay involved. You have to keep in communication with them. It's not catch and release. It's not you just go vote and then you're done. That's just beginning. You have to go to the school board meetings, the city council meetings. Come and visit us at the BOCC. We had 500 people come and visit us just 2 weeks ago. And you know what it did? 5 of the commissioners, it scared them to death. They're frightened of you. They don't want you involved. The status quo has been so used to functioning, not having the light of day shined upon what they've been doing. And back to the incentives. I want to make it clear. In 2004, I took a $2.5 million tax incentive. I've let people know that all along. And the end story is, at the end of that tax incentive that I passed through to my tenant, they left. I was left with an overbuilt building and lost a ton of money. And that is the story of tax incentives. You have to let the market work. Government cannot create a market. It can't. I mean, we give star bonds to 159th and Antioch. Why? Why are we giving Price Brothers star bonds? And they're using the tax revenue from the businesses that are already there. This project is not bringing in the businesses. It's a mess. So anyway, back to the county. I have discovered now that Johnson County, is the land of masked kids. We are the land of critical race theory. And as I said, we are the land of corporatocracy. If you are connected, you get the goodies. So we are the county that we subsidize Warren Buffett and Jeff Bezos. That's who we're subsidizing. And if that doesn't make you cranky, I don't know what will. So anyway, I want to tell you that we're getting a lot of pushback, which is good. This is good. This is very good, because when you get pushback, it means that you're doing the right thing. It means that you are doing the right thing. And it is absolutely up to each and every individual, because this is the end game. They are trying to steal your individuality. They don't care about individual rights. They don't. And it is imperative that you stand up and say, I am sovereign. I am sovereign. I have rights. I have rights of freedom of speech. We've seen what is happening to school board candidates that are being bullied, losing their jobs because they had the courage to speak the truth. You have to stand with them. And as I've been standing for the truth, and I've been asking questions at the county commission, on Thursday I was notified that I had a code of ethics violation filed against me. I have no idea. It's about Stonegate. It's a project out in Stillwater. I have no idea what the allegations are. I asked, and they said, well, just someone filed an allegation. So guess what I did yesterday? I filed for county chair. I don't know. They filed, I filed. And you know the question I have to ask? You know, my good friends, Mike Brown and Steve Klicka, it took them years to get a code of ethics violation filed against them. It only took me 7 months. So I will continue to stand with you. Oh, first of all, I want to thank Truman, Brooks, and Johnny. There's Johnny. They have been dog setting my dogs. They have done a great job. Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys. And I also want to thank all of the brave children that are going to school and not wearing a mask. This is hard. This is tough. They are on the front lines, and it is unconscionable that we are putting putting our kindergartners, our babies, on the front line to fight these battles. It makes me cry. It's just unconscionable. I have not worn a mask at the county. I mean, I was bullied, I was shadowed, it has been absolutely horrible, but they have finally given up. They know that there's just no getting me to wear that mask. So I am the unmasked wonder at the county. I need your prayers. I need you to work hard for the candidates that are on the ballot in November. My race won't be until 2022, but you know what? I just want to let them all know what's coming. So take care, God bless, and please lead with your faith. That's what we have to do. God bless you.
Charlotte O'Hara, ladies and gentlemen. Big round of applause for Charlotte. I want to thank Commissioner O'Hara very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen. What a warrior, what a servant leader, what a servant warrior she is. Thank you very much, Charlotte. All right, I want to introduce you to Laura Klingsmith. Laura is the founder of United Voices of Kansas, and what a job she's done in such a short amount of time, really. We now more than ever, as a state, as a community, need to unite our voices, and Laura and her organization are doing just that, ladies and gentlemen. As I said at the beginning, this organization is becoming a template across the nation for other such organizations. And that's a really, really big deal. So Laura, thank you, and here you are.
Hold on 1 second. Okay. So I'm not a politician. I'm just a mom, so I actually have to read what I'm going to say. So I want to thank all of you for being here today. A few weeks ago, when they started talking about masking our kids again at the county, I got angry at our county health director. And you all got angry too, because that's why you're here today. The masking did not work the first time, so why do they think it's going to work again? A dear friend of mine reminded me that this is not about one person. This is about the entire system and the way that we move our movement forward. A movement that is about protecting our constitutional parental rights and how we unite together to create one loud voice so they hear us, so we are heard. You are the only one who knows what's best for your child. Do not ever forget that. And guess what? The state of Kansas agrees with you. Kansas State Statute 38141B states, "It shall be the public policy of this state that parents shall retain the fundamental right to exercise primary control over the care and upbringing of their children." They already said, you know what's best for your kids. So how is the county and the school districts requiring your child to wear a mask? Well, they always refer to Kansas State Statute 65. Guess what, folks? In that same chapter is section 116H. 65-116H, and it states, preservation of individual rights. Nothing in this act shall be construed or operate to empower or authorize the Secretary of Health and Environment or the Secretary's designee or the local health officer to restrict in any manner the individual's right to select the mode of treatment of his or her choice. Right there, folks, black and white. You get to decide your mode of treatment. Whether you mask or not mask, whether you vaccinate or not vaccinate. So why are we still having this conversation? The state has already said your individual rights cannot be restricted, and you Only you are in charge of making your decisions for your child of whether you mask them or not, vaccinate them or not. The Kansas Supreme Court in 2019 ruling says the Kansas Constitution of Bill of Rights affords the protection of the right of personal autonomy, which includes the ability to control one's body, to assert bodily integrity, and to exercise self-discrimination. None of these statutes and constitutional rights become null and void in the presence of a virus. So, how can they do this? It's because we haven't asked if they can. We have blindly followed, and this has to stop. You want it to stop, otherwise you would not be here today. So, what are we going to do? Today is your call of action to make a difference. In front of the stage and in front of the t-shirt booth, please make sure you come see my husband. That's his plug to sell his t-shirts. You're going to scan that code today. And when you scan it, you are going to get the entire Kansas roster of the House representatives and the senators. Bombard their emails and voicemail. Flood their inbox. Flood their voicemail. Demand that they call a special session now. Demand that they pass a no vaccine, no mask mandate now. Even if the FDA approves one of the vaccines on Monday, demand they do it now. Because if you do not put the pressure on them now, they will do nothing for you in January. Do not let them be lame ducks, with the exception of the two here. Sorry about that. Because the thing that I cannot stand is when an elected official tells me local elections matter. Then what in the world am I voting for you for? You will also get the Attorney General Derek Schmidt and Amanda Atkins contact information. Folks, they want your votes next year. Make them earn it. Contact the Attorney General and ask him why. Ask him why he has not stated that the state and the county cannot issue a mandate. They can make recommendations, but they cannot issue a mandate. The Supreme Court has already stated, my child, my choice prevails because our constitutional rights do not ever become mute at any time. Yes. The Attorney General is running for governor. So make him show you today what he will do for you, not what he may do tomorrow. Amen. Contact Amanda Atkins. Folks, she's running for 3rd Congressional District. Ask her what she's going to do to protect your parental rights. And then go to the Federal Election Commission website and look up her donors. When you see a repeating name, Google it. I expect the concept of vaccine passports will come to mind. Do not be afraid to call your House rep, call your senator, or any candidate, because fear is why we are in this mess in the first place. Make your voice be heard. You will also get, when you download the QR code, every email and contact information for the school board members, the superintendents, for every single school district in Johnson County, along with their meeting dates. You will also get the contact information for the Board of County Commissioners, Dr. Areola, Elizabeth Holsch, and the county manager, along with those meeting dates. Ask your county, ask your school district how they can overlook state statute and restrict your parental rights. Ask them how they have the authority to mandate the health of a healthy person. When you send your emails, do not email the entire board. This creates an Open Meetings Act, and this is why they're not responding to you. Email them individually. I know it's a pain. Cut and paste, get a cup of coffee, and just do it. Send your emails, make your phone calls daily, show up for the meetings, and never stop fighting for your kid. Yes. Because there is always going to be a new variant. There is always going to be a reason for them to make you wear a mask. There's always going to be a reason for another booster. There will always be a reason for the government to try to issue a mandate. Protect and fight for your freedom of choice. I want to thank you all for being here today because your attendance means you are putting your kid first. But we have to encourage those who are not here today to stop being a keyboard warrior. Posting on social media about how mad you are isn't enough. Your children are worth fighting for, so it's time to encourage them to get out of their comfort zone and get engaged. Find a group, whether it's United Voices of Kansas, Kansas for Health Freedom, Our Child, Our Choice, Moms for Liberty, Unmatched Joko, Help Them Play. Find your group. Get engaged. There is support in numbers, and you've got to work together so we can protect our freedom. Our speakers today are going to give you nuggets of information. Learn from it. Use it. Because, folks, it's going to take all of us together to unite to stop and end this tyranny. Because in the end, individually we speak, but united we are heard, and they are going to hear us. Thank you.
Wow, for someone who's not a politician, I think she knows how to give a speech, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Laura Klingsmith, there she is. Wonderful job, wonderful. And again, don't forget, 913-305-4344. Text to donate. Text, that's the United Voices for Kansas text line, 913-305-4344. And water. We have water underneath this tree. Just a reminder, big blue tub of water. And don't be afraid to come up close. Come up close and say hi. We're right up here. There's another set of coolers up here with some cold water in it for you as well. So I wanted to introduce to you, by the way, the next gentleman who I'm going to bring up on stage is responsible for this beautiful day today. Once a meteorologist, always a meteorologist. He thanks for the rain. We needed it last night, Senator Mike Thompson, and thanks for the gorgeous day today. And here he is, Senator Mike Thompson.
Thank you. Thank you, Doug. When I decided to get involved in the Senate, I spent about 6 months praying. I thought, God, why are you leading me here? What are you putting me in this position for? Now I know. It's to support all of you. It really is. You are the voices that we need. In the Senate, we need your support, absolutely. And on the day that, and by the way, if I ever do something wrong, contact my wife. She promises she'll slap me. Guaranteed on that. On the day, March 12th, 2020 is a day I'll never forget. That's the day the governor shut this state down. And I knew two things were going to happen. I knew, first of all, that the economy was going to go through the floor. We lost over 30% of the businesses in Kansas as a result of this. I also knew that that was going to give them the opportunity to feed you lies. And we used the term gaslighting. I didn't know initially what the term gaslighting meant, but that's what we've been victimized by for the last year and a half, actually for the last 4 decades. Let me read the definition. Gaslighting is an insidious form of manipulation, psychological control. Victims of gaslighting are deliberately and systematically fed false information that leads them to question what they know to be true, often about themselves. They may end up doubting their memory, their perception, and even their sanity. And over time, a gaslighter's manipulations can grow more complex and potent, making it increasingly difficult for the victim to see the truth. Fortunately, you people see the truth. You do. But there's a whole lot of folks, yes, a whole lot of folks that don't. They are using the climate change playbook to force this down our throats. We have the statutes, as Laura said, in place to protect our personal freedoms. We just have to use them. Just think of all the lies we've been told, and most of all, and I want to use this in the climate change context, They're telling us we need to take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere to save the planet, but by the same token, we want to put a mask on our kids so they can breathe in 25,000 parts per million of CO2. Does that make any sense whatsoever? We are harming our kids. They can't breathe. The lack of oxygen, the increase in CO2 in their bloodstream is actually causing damage. The PCR tests we know are complete falsehoods. When you use cycle thresholds as high as they had, it's just a series of false positives. And they've been using that to push these numbers and to cause fear, create problems for people who have been gaslighted and have fallen victim to that. The death stats, we don't even know how many people actually died of COVID. The CDC itself said only 6% died of COVID alone, and the rest had other comorbidities. We know that for a fact. And the COVID numbers have been inflated artificially. Now we've got a Delta and Lambda variant, which we know are basically the same gene sequence or a portion of the gene sequence. All of this data was available. All of it was available. We've all been reading this stuff. My question is, why is the governor, why is the Dr. Fauci's of the world, the Lee Normans of the world, the Dr. Ariolas of the world, why do they continue to follow CDC guidance when they change their mind as often as they change their underwear? I mean, this is absolutely crazy. You know the truth. We can present the truth. Why is it they won't see it? Follow the money. Absolutely. You're 100% right. Fauci's of the world, Fauci was responsible for thousands of deaths during HIV. He's been a problem for 40 years. And unfortunately, most people are listening still to these health tyrants. Thank God also for the courageous doctors and nurses who we now have standing up. Let's give them a big round of applause. Those folks are risking their lives, their careers, their livelihoods to come out and speak the truth, in spite of all odds. And I'm going to introduce you to one here very shortly who's going to speak after me. It takes a lot of courage to do this. And to me, I listen to people who have that kind of courage, not the ones who fall into line and follow the CDC guidance. So we need to find a way to support them. We also need to find a way to support you. We've got things in statutes. Senator Mark Steffan, who's going to speak here just after me, also had a couple bills for vaccine freedom that we tried to get through, could not. I have a Senate Bill 308 that's sitting in there that just basically affirms your right to refuse to wear a mask, to refuse to take a vaccine, to be able to use off-label FDA drugs. We couldn't get it heard. We need to get this thing heard. So Senate leadership needs to get it through. We also have SB 159, which we did get through as a budget proviso. Basically, it says that we can't expend government funds, state funds, for anything that requires a vaccine passport in any shape and form. So we think there's a number of violations of Senate Bill 159 taking place at the school board level. They're using this money to ask, have you been vaccinated? And if you answer, you don't have to answer, by the way, according to our new statute here, but we need to get this into law. But revealing that status has to be voluntary. But they're making assumptions that if you don't answer it in the affirmative, that you were not vaccinated and you should wear a mask. We need to push back against that. We're also working on a COVID freedom bill. I think Mark is going to talk about to you here in a minute, and probably Kris Kobach as well. But the big thing is we have to have you standing up. We can only do so much. We're very limited in our time in the state legislature. We have from January to May. I would go back in a heartbeat for a special session. Absolutely, to do the right thing. It takes 2/3 majority of the legislature. Do we have enough guts to do it? I know Mark would. I would. There's a bunch of us who would. There's some who probably would not. I think it's absolutely necessary, and we're going to continue to push for it. But in the meantime, we need you out there. You've got to take the fight to these school boards, to the county boards, and put pressure on these health directors. We're going to support you in every way that we can. And just know that there are people at the state level that listen to you. I get flooded with emails every day. I read them all. I spent the last 2 days answering emails just to try to catch up. And I'm sure it's already full again. Just know I am listening, and I'm going to do everything I can to help you. Absolutely. You're the most important people. That's why I'm here. I got 10 grandkids. It's for my kids, your kids, and our liberty and freedom. That's the important thing. So in close, thank you all for being here. Please tell your neighbors and friends they've got to have the courage to stand up. Support all these people who are out there walking door to door, because this next round of candidates is going to have the courage to stand up and do this. And so at that point, I'm going to turn the microphone over to my very good friend. I'll tell you, just last year I didn't know Mark Steffan. He's the most amazing senator. He's a physician. He's been working for your health freedom in the state. He's a certified natural health professional. Well, let's see. I got the wrong thing here. I'll tell you what, I'll let Mark handle his introduction. Let's say hello. Reno County, Senator Mark Steffan. He's a physician. He's been doing some fantastic work in the Senate. And I'll tell you what, we're going to work together to get this thing done. Let me turn it over to Mark. All these years, Mark, I never used the teleprompter. I'm not very good at reading. So here we go. Senator Mark Steffan.
Thank you, Mike. You know, as our professional stumbled through that intro, he didn't stumble on calling me his friend, and that's what means everything to me. That's all that really matters. And you know, Mike, he's a great guy. He's charismatic. He's smart. He's insightful. He's a great guy, and we have become very good friends because we think alike. We push hard in a similar pattern, and we're trying our best to get things done. But yeah, y'all don't know me. This is really about my first opportunity to speak in Johnson County, and what a great crowd! What a big crowd! And it's a wonderful thing. Now, I'm from Reno County, Hutchinson area, Kingman County, and we're not near as close to each other as you all are here. And so our lives are a little bit different out in rural Kansas, and it's good for you guys to get to hear a guy like me talk. You know, I am a board-certified anesthesiologist, went to medical school at OU. I farmed my whole life during the summers up in central Kansas around Lyons, and so when it came time to settle down, I liked it up here better. So, you know, in my opinion, I'm better than a fifth-generation Kansan. I'm a first-generation Kansan because I can live anywhere I want to, and I want to be here. Now, sometimes I have a prepared speech, sometimes I don't. When I don't, I usually speak before I think, and that's usually a lot more fun. So we'll have a good time. I'm gonna bounce around from topic to topic. But you know, first off, again, you know, I besides being a doctor for over 30 years, you know, I've put together a farm and ranch down in Kingman County. So I'm still out there on the farms, driving tractors, beating on things with hammers, turning pipes on oil wells with a pipe wrench. I really still work, and I, you know, I think that's part of what makes me very unique. You know, I am overeducated, but I still have the blue collar threads to me that I grew up with. I never dreamed of running for political office. Never contemplated. I've spent my adult life being basically a recluse. You know, I don't want anybody to know what I'm doing. I don't want anybody to know what my business is. But when the good Lord starts talking to you and Donald Trump comes along, you know, it's the perfect storm. And I knew I had to step up and run. And so when I did that, I said two things. It's my great commission as a Christian, and it's in honor of Donald Trump, because people got to come up along. He can't be here forever. We lost him in 4 years. We've got to have like-minded people follow up and carry out the traditions and the ideals that he set for us. And that's what brought me into the political arena and what has brought me to you all today. And again, I'm very honored to get to speak. What have I done that you care about? Well, I came into the Senate writing bills, and my bills were about right to try, because to me, the biggest crime, and it's a crime, is this failure to treat that's going on with this virus. We now have 31 studies looking at ivermectin. Is it 100% effective in reducing hospitalizations and death? No. But it certainly looks like it's somewhere from 60 to 80, which in reality, this perfect vaccination that we're now having to have a third shot of, well, not we, I'm not part of that. It's no better than ivermectin, and yet we have that crowd. We have our liberal academic hospitals saying, "Oh, we're over full. We're suffering." Crap! If they cared, they'd be treating this early. This is part of the propaganda that's being shoved down our throats with millions of dollars from our federal government. There's no doubt about it. Now, my dear wife over here, Deanna, we have a website. It's actually not my website, but it's a website. It's a repository of all the scientific information involving the China virus and its variants from India and Brazil and wherever. And it's we can come up to us, we'll give you the card, but it's rccft.org, Reno County Citizens for Transparency.org. And it has every bit of information on there you could ever want. If you could debate somebody, have you noticed you cannot debate the science? You can't debate it. What does that make it? It makes it propaganda. If those folks are not willing to sit down and have a lively debate over different data, different studies, well, then it's pure and simple. It's propaganda. So we got to keep fighting strong. You guys are incredibly important to us in the Senate. When our phones and our computers light up with emails, it makes a difference. Yes, we have problems in the Senate and the House. We have leadership, particularly in the House, that's weak. They're weak. And they're not conservatives. They're rhinos at best. And we've got to target folks like that. We got to identify who's holding us out of being successful, and we got to go after them. And it's the grassroots. And that brings me to one of my big issues in being at Topeka. We got several kinds of politicians, but we got special interest politicians. We got rhinos who say one thing and do another, and they literally hamstring us from being a great state, from getting the things done to empower the people. Governance is about the people. It's about the grassroots. It's about individual freedoms. And we got to quit this special interest nonsense like the star bonds that Charlotte was talking about earlier. They're ridiculous. We've got to take control of our government. We have to elect representatives who are going to represent us individually. And that's why, I'm thrilled to see this crowd, because you guys are getting angry. You're starting to get uncomfortable. When we're fat and happy, we don't do anything. We sit there and take it. But we're starting to get uncomfortable, and unfortunately, we're going to get more uncomfortable. This past year in the Senate, 2 weeks in, we had a joint meeting of the health departments in the House and the Senate to talk to Lee Norman. I blew him up with 6 bullet points of his different lies and his different mistakes in the management of the virus. I want you to know that. He turned red. He had steam coming out of his ears. But the truth hurts, bottom line. Also in the Senate, I had bills for the right to try to normalize ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. They're still languishing, but that to me, that's the big lie. That's the big lie. They are knowingly allowing people to suffer. They're knowingly allowing people to die. And you're hearing that from a doctor. You're not hearing that from an armchair doctor. You're hearing that from a practicing physician. So I had that bill. We had a bill that would exempt employers of any legal ramifications if employees or patrons happen to accidentally pass the virus. And then they didn't want it. The businesses didn't want it. I need you to connect with business owners all over the state, big and small, and say, hey, this is about individual rights. This is not about business rights. Individual rights are in the Constitution. I had never seen business rights in the Constitution. We save our businesses. We save our businesses. We save our democracy by supporting individual rights. We start governing for businesses, we're socialists, we're communists. They don't understand that. Help me teach them that the business owner is a person first and has to support individual rights. We had that bill. We tried to get the schools. We tried to take the power away from Lion Lee Norman in regards to being able to mandate new vaccines. We're going to keep trying. We didn't get it done, but we're going to keep trying. From there, again, we're going to have a COVID freedom bill that will get filed on day one of the session. It's going to be no mask mandates, no vaccine mandates, no vaccine passports, no business closures, and no church closures. Mike hears you, I hear you, we see the truth, you see the truth. We got to keep pushing. We've got to make the people who don't see the light, we got to make them see the light. So, bottom line is we hear you, we're with you. People are going to get hurt between now and January, and that's unfortunate, but we got to boldly embrace change. If we have to leave our job for another job, there's a lot of them out there. Let's walk. If we have to quit going to our favorite restaurant because they make us wear a mask, they're done. They're dead to me. I don't need them. We got to be lions, not sheep. And in close, I got a couple things real quick. Number one, my beloved son, Colin Steffan, is in the crowd. He just moved here from Oklahoma City. He's with Polsinelli Law Firm. He's a high-powered corporate lawyer. And he is a bright light in the darkness. So I would encourage you, each of you, to get to know him. He's with his wonderful girlfriend, Rachel. And we love them both, and my wife, Deanna, as well. Meet them. Go over and introduce yourself. We need to connect with good minds, with good young minds, and I got two of them here today. Deanna's not quite as young as she used to be, but she's still beautiful. But, okay, lastly, we got a governor's race coming up next year, don't we? Priority one is we got to get rid of Laura Kelly. She has to go. She has to go. 99% of the pain from this virus response lays at her feet. And nobody can be confused about that. Now, we got to elect the right person. We're still a year away from this election, and we got a lot of time left in this election. And right now, I am uninspired. I am uninspired by our candidates. We got one who is a special interest, career politician, and we got one that seems to have his finger up in there trying to figure out which way the wind's blowing. We deserve better than that. We deserve better than that. Like Charlotte said, you know who your leaders are going to be when they get up on a stage and tell it like it is and tell you what they believe in and what they'll do, and then they do it. But when you have people telling about all the things they've done and the committees they've been on, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. We need to keep searching. We need to demand more of our candidates at present, and we got to get what we need to lead this state forward. Thank you, guys.
Senator Steffan, ladies and gentlemen, one more time, there he is. Given the current state of affairs with election fraud and theft and everything, it might be that the actual Secretary of State or Governor is about ready to take the stage here. I don't know, given the fact that we can't really trust the system. You all know him. He really doesn't need an introduction. Kris Kobach, ladies and gentlemen, raised in Topeka, and he's here with us today in Overland Park. Kris Kobach, here he is.
Very much. I really appreciate it. What an amazing crowd. It looks like 300 plus people here. That's awesome. There are strength in numbers. There's absolutely strength in numbers. It is a great honor to be here. Some of you know that before I became your Secretary of State, I taught constitutional law at UMKC for 15 years. And, there's some constitutional rights at issue right now in our society. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that. But don't go to sleep. I'm going to try to go fast, but I want to talk about things that are applicable to you, rights that you have. Because you can't exercise those rights unless you know those rights, okay? But before we start, I want to just make an observation. Have you noticed that this whole COVID thing has revealed a lot about human nature? Have you noticed that the states that locked down the hardest were controlled by the left? California and New York. And the states that were the freest were controlled by the right. Texas, Florida, South Dakota. That is an interesting reflection on the parties in America and on the people in America. That's not to say it applies to all people. There are, unfortunately, some Republicans who think government knows best. And there are, thankfully, quite a few Democrats who believe in individual freedom and still believe that people have the right to personal responsibility to make these choices for themselves. But I mention this because we need to see where the threats are coming from. If you look into Kansas counties, you see counties like Douglas County, which just a couple of days ago enforced a masking mandate on children between the ages of 2 and 12. Ridiculous. Just children, because they're assuming everybody else is going to be forced to get a vaccine. But you see the threat coming from counties that are controlled by the left. Counties that have more of a Republican lean are more likely to be listening to the people. And so we just have to sort of recognize that this has unfortunately become a political issue. It's not being driven by the science. And it's all been driven by control. And way too many Democrats in office are embracing their inner authoritarian, and we need to embrace our inner freedom-loving soul and fight back. So I'm going to talk briefly about some of the legal and rights we have, and specifically regarding vaccine passports, because they are coming down the pike, unfortunately. They're already in Europe. Countries like Denmark and Sweden already have vaccine passports in place. You can't go to a restaurant, you can't travel, you can't do a whole host of things unless you've got your vaccine passport. The European Union already has this. You can't travel between member countries of the European Union unless you have your vaccine passport. We've even heard Joe Biden's people talking about maybe they can use their authority over interstate commerce and say you can't cross a state line without a passport. Oh boy, let them try that. You'll just see Americans erupting, especially in this area where we have a state line going right through the middle of the city. But the bottom line is it's coming. And so I want to talk to you about 3 topics. First, federal mandates. Second, state mandates. And third, private mandates. Because your rights differ on each one. And we're going to fight back, right? But we got to know our rights. Okay, so federal government. The federal government has no authority whatsoever, and liberals across the spectrum will agree, lawyers across the spectrum will agree on this. They have no authority whatsoever to order a national vaccine mandate. That's why Joe Biden, to the extent that he can still hear the people around him, is listening to his lawyers. They're telling him, you can't impose a vaccine mandate. He would have done it long ago if the federal government had the authority to do that. So have some security and some assurance there. There's no federal power to force vaccine mandates or mask mandates or any sort of mandate. All they can do is use other tools to try to force state governments and other governments to do it, and private entities to do it. Any power they have comes from Article 1, Section 8. It's called the commerce power. Oh, and there's a giant picture of my head walking through the crowd here. That's so creepy. Anyway, any power they have comes from Article 1, Section 8, commerce power. The Supreme Court, remember the Obamacare decision from, now 8 years ago? That decision, there was a good part and a bad part. The good part of the decision was the Supreme Court majority said, the commerce power doesn't allow you to force people to buy health insurance if they don't want to buy something. Well, similarly, the commerce power doesn't allow you to force people to take a vaccine if they don't want to take a vaccine. So that's clear, crystal clear. However, the drumbeat continues. There was an article by Max Boot. He's a ostensible Republican, but he's really a rhino. He wrote an article in the Washington Post, said, the time has come for vaccines. No more persuading, time to mandate, mandate, mandate. That is the drumbeat from the left, and we have to know our rights and resist. Now, on the subject of the federal government, before I move on, there is one tool that they have, and unfortunately, I think they've discovered it. I was hoping that they wouldn't realize it, but it's still there. And that is, they have the spending power. They can use federal dollars to bribe or coerce or bully states into doing what they want to do. Remember in 1983, when the drinking age nationally changed from 18 or 19 or whatever it was in any state to 21? All the states did that because they agreed, they thought it was a good idea, right? No. The federal government put the hammer down on the states by using highway funds. They passed a law in 1983 that said if you don't do what we tell you to do, you states, never mind states' rights, never mind the 10th Amendment, if you don't do what we tell you to do, you're going to lose your highway funds. In fact, you're not even going to lose all. They only said you're going to lose 5% of your highway funds. But the states folded up like a cheap tent. It was that fast. And I remember these details because I turned 18 in 1984. It had a personal impact on me. So if I seem scarred and maybe a little bit psychologically bent out of shape, it's because I saw my peers losing their right to have a beer. And anyway, for those of you who want to know, I was in that cutoff. So it became 19. When I turned 19, it became 20. So I was safe, but my friends who were a year younger than me were not safe. So the point is, the federal government did this, and they can do it again. Now, one state stood up, though. Oh, by the way, did you know that Hawaii was also forced, even though they don't even have any highways? Anyway, I digress. So one state stood up. That was South Dakota. And they went all the way to the Supreme Court in the case of South Dakota versus Dole. And the Supreme Court rendered a really bad decision. It was a split decision, but the Supreme Court said, yeah, the federal government can do that with federal money. Well, let me tell you, if they try that again, and they try to do a nationwide mandate by withholding money, we have a very different Supreme Court today, a much better Supreme Court today. And if I'm Attorney General of this state, which by the way I'm running, if I'm Attorney General, I'll be at the courthouse door, and Kansas will be going up against the federal government, and we will win that case in the Supreme Court. This is not a campaign speech, but we have to absolutely be ready to fight. Right now, there are several lawsuits that have been brought, about 10 of them have been brought against the Biden administration. 6 of them have been brought by Texas. 6. Where are the other states? And none of them have been brought by Kansas. We need to be standing next to Texas and suing the Biden administration at every turn, especially when it comes to taking away our freedoms. Okay, now let me talk about the second part, state vaccine mandates. Now, state governments do have the authority to do things like telling or asking businesses to do things and telling or asking individuals to do things, but our constitutional rights limit what the states can tell us to do. And there are 3 constitutional rights that come into play here. First of all, there is our right to free exercise of religion. The First Amendment, right to freely exercise our faith. Thank God the Founding Fathers put that in our Constitution. So, a person who believes that a vaccine derived from fetal tissue violates one's Christian beliefs or another faith's belief has every right to say no. That goes against my religious beliefs. So we have that. We also have the 14th Amendment, and this is the big one, the word liberty, the liberty interest in the 14th Amendment. Now the 14th Amendment at its core protects your ability, you can't be thrown into jail, they can't take away your liberty without a trial. But over the past 100 years, the Supreme Court has said, well, there's also a substantive liberty interest, and this liberty interest has grown, and now it clearly protects the right of us to our bodily integrity, and it protects our right to refuse to take a vaccine if we so choose. We clearly have a 14th Amendment right here. Now, it's interesting, that same 14th Amendment liberty right that's been growing and growing is also the one that the pro-abortion crowd has derived their abortion right from. But you don't hear them saying, my body, my choice anymore, do you? Where are they? Where are they supporting choice and bodily integrity? All of a sudden, they've forgotten, because these rights really aren't a principle to them. They aren't a core principle that's driving them. But the right of the 14th Amendment is really important. I'm going to come back to that. And then the third one is your 4th Amendment right against unreasonable searches and seizures. If the federal government got really aggressive, or sorry, a state government got really aggressive and tried to actually physically force people to take vaccines, physically, hands-on, physical, then the 4th Amendment would come into play, and we would have that right as well. So we have 3 constitutional protections. We have to know them. We have to be willing to assert them. So let me talk a little bit about the 14th Amendment liberty interest, though. I'm going to read a Supreme Court paragraph for you, so don't go to sleep. I know it's tough, but I mean, especially with all this heat. You guys in the shade, you stay awake. Okay, so this is Chief Justice Rehnquist in 1997. He was asked, what are all these liberty interests protected by the 14th Amendment? And it was part of the opinion. It was the Washington versus Glucksberg. That was the opinion where the Supreme Court said you have no liberty right to a physician-assisted suicide. The 14th Amendment doesn't protect that. But he then cataloged what it does protect. And I'm going to read what he said for the majority of the Supreme Court. 14th Amendment. In a long line of cases, we have held that in addition to the specific freedoms protected by the Bill of Rights, the liberty specially protected by the Due Process Clause, that's the 14th Amendment, includes the right to marry, the right to have children, the right to direct the education and upbringing of one's children, remember that, to marital privacy, to use contraception, to bodily integrity, remember that one, and to abortion. We have also assumed and strongly suggested that the Due Process Clause protects the traditional right to refuse unwanted life-saving medical treatment. That should apply to all medical treatment. So clearly, the right to refuse a vaccine is encompassed in the right to bodily integrity. It's encompassed, if it involves children, in the right to control the upbringing of our children. And it certainly is included in the right to reject a substance, whether it be a medicine or something else, being put into our body. That right to bodily integrity, by the way, came from a case in the 1950s where a person who was a suspect for dealing drugs, the police raided his apartment and he put a bunch of pills in his mouth to hide them, and they took him back to the police station and they gave him a substance that's used it's called a stomach pump, right? To make him get that stuff out of his body. The Supreme Court said you can't do that. You can't put something that somebody doesn't want into their body, even if he's a criminal suspect. Well, they certainly can't force us to put things in our body as freedom-loving Americans who have done nothing. Okay, now you might have heard that there was a court case in Indiana about the state university, the University of Indiana, requiring vaccines of its students. Have you noticed that the universities requiring vaccines are almost all private universities? Very few public universities are forcing vaccines. That's because they have lawyers. And the lawyers are telling them the 14th Amendment stops you as a public institution, as an arm of the state, from forcing vaccines. So bear that in mind. An arm of the state cannot force anyone to get a vaccine. Now, these private universities, they're saying, hey, 14th Amendment doesn't restrict us. And they're right. So these private universities are enforcing vaccines all across the country, unfortunately. But one public university, Indiana, tried to do it. The case is in the Court of Appeals. It may go all the way to the Supreme Court, although not on the expedited manner they tried to do. But the bottom line is the state is relying on this Massachusetts versus Jacobson, a case from 1905. It involved the smallpox vaccine. But the Supreme Court Justices Gorsuch and Kavanaugh have said that doesn't apply anymore. That was before the court had its notion of how we deal with fundamental liberties today. It's like, trying to take something you would use to fix a horse and buggy to fix a modern sports car. You can't use cases that old. They don't even use the same term. Anyway, I wouldn't worry about that. I think at the end of the day, the Supreme Court's going to recognize that the government, a state government institution, cannot force us to get a vaccine. Okay, but I want to move on to the third part here. Private vaccine mandates. This is the real threat. For most of us, if any of us is going to face a vaccine mandate or a mask mandate, vaccine mandate especially, it's going to come from a private institution. And that's why the woke left is pushing all of the major corporations to force vaccine mandates on their customers and on their employees. And that's why, for example, the cruise ship industry was one of the first to move out until Florida said no with state legislative action and state gubernatorial action. And that's where I'm going to talk about. This is where we have to have people like Senator Steffan, people like Senator J.R. Clay sitting right here. We have to have people in the Senate and in the House of Representatives of Kansas helping us here, because private vaccine mandates are a real problem. Now, one saving grace here is that market forces are on our side. For example, the feds would love for the airlines to issue a vaccine mandate, right? I mean, we've all been fearing that one, thinking it's around the corner. Why haven't the airlines, which are privately owned, enforced a vaccine mandate on us? Because they recognize that if you look at the polling, about 40 to 45 to 50% of the public rejects vaccine mandates. They might decide to get a vaccine, but they reject being forced to get a vaccine. And they don't want to give up 40% of the flying marketplace. In other words, if we raise our voices and we make it known that as consumers, we believe in individual rights, that helps us. It helps us to keep the airlines at bay. It helps us to keep other private entities at bay. So be aware of that. Events like this make it less likely that an airline is going to impose a mandate. So recognize that together we really are stronger. And thank you for being here. All right. But you see it again. I mean, it's even happening in industries that make no sense whatsoever. I mean, did you hear about the NFL a couple months ago? Forcing players with all kinds of pressure on them and penalties to get vaccinated. These are men in their 20s who are at the height of physical strength and super healthy. We all know the data. I'm no doctor, but I can read enough articles to know that that person is unlikely to suffer significant medical consequences if he gets COVID. But still, they don't care about the science. They want to force the people to obey. They just want you to shut up and obey. And we are here saying, no, we're not going to shut up, and no, we're not going to obey. Okay, so to wrap it up, what do we do then? So we have this threat of private vaccine mandates. There is a very clear answer and a very clear way we can win. And that is for the state legislature to pass a law that says no entity, no corporation can force its customers to have vaccine mandates. If they want to go even further, they can say, or its employees to have a vaccine. And if that company does so, they no longer have the right to do business in Kansas. That is what the bill that Senator Steffan was talking about. That's what it says. I know because I wrote it. That bill is going to be run in the Kansas Senate. We have allies. We have people like Senator Steffan from Garden City, all the way from Garden City, like Senator Thompson from here in Johnson County, like J.R. Clays from Salina. There are lots, and there are only 40 senators. So we have a lot of good people willing to fight for us. So when that bill comes up, we need to lean on them, lean hard, and get that passed in Kansas. Once it goes through the Senate, very good chance we can get it through the House. And I think we can even get the 2/3 majority to override a gubernatorial veto. So we have to lean hard. We have to fight. And by the way, that same bill is already running in Arizona. It caused a huge stir. They didn't get it done before the end of their legislative session, but it'll be backed. So remember that. You all know that your legislative session begins at the first week of January, but then it cuts off in May. So our legislators aren't in session right now. Now, I doubt that the governor's going to call a special session. I wish she would, but I'm not holding my breath. But we all need to be geared up in January to put maximum pressure on our representatives to protect the rights of we the people of Kansas. Okay, one last subject, because I know that a lot of people have a question about this, and that is, what about mask mandates in the schools? So, well, let me back up. If they try to impose mask mandates on churches in anywhere in Kansas, they're going to lose. We will take them to court. Some attorney friends of mine already did take them to court a year ago when they tried to restrict church services. Our First Amendment right to freely worship as we choose also includes whether we want to wear a mask or not wear a mask, and I would say not wear a mask when glorifying God and singing and praising. So if any county imposes a mask mandate on churches, that one is destined to lose in court. And let me know about it if it's not something that's in the major news like Johnson County. But secondly, schools. Now, in schools, it's a little more difficult for us to oppose it as a lawyer, but that's not to say we can't. Because in a school, you don't have that First Amendment right to freely worship. But it is a government entity, and that means you have a 14th Amendment right to do what? To control the upbringing of our children. And so I believe, but it's an individual right. I have the right to control the upbringing of my children, not your children. That's your right. And so we assert it on an individual level. So I would recommend that if you are a parent of a child in a public school, you ask for an exemption because you control the right to your child. Let me rephrase that. Don't ask for an exemption. Demand an exemption. If your child has asthma, it's a no-brainer. A person with asthma should not be wearing a mask. But even beyond that, it should, look, again, I'm no doctor, but I know that my brain requires oxygen. And I also know that if my blood has elevated levels of CO2, that's not good for me either. And I also know that if I'm breathing my own air in and out for 6 hours a day wearing a mask, that could have health consequences and complications. So therefore, you and I as parents have the right to weigh the risks. Do I want my child to have reduced oxygenation in his or her blood all day long versus the risk that something's going to happen because they're not wearing a mask? That's your choice. Consult your doctor and then tell the school what your decision is. It is not their choice to make that decision regarding your child. And the Supreme Court has said so over and over again. So that's what I would recommend you do. Assert your right, demand your right to an individual exemption when it comes to these school mandates. Now, we did have a state bill, you might have heard about Senate Bill 40, which was passed in the last legislative session. That would have made it easier for us as parents to collectively stop school districts. But a Johnson County judge unfortunately struck that down. It was a great bill. The drafters made a mistake by including kind of a provision in it that was obviously going to get struck down. If they hadn't done that, it would still be enforced. But whatever, we can still assert our rights individually for our own children right now. And if the legislature, again, goes back to that subject, which I think they will, next session, a year from now, we should have even stronger protections to be operating school-wide against the whole district. So anyway, that's a quick summary of your rights. But the bottom line is, none of these rights are going to be recognized unless we're standing at the courthouse demanding that we have these rights and that we want to exercise these rights. So take courage, take heart. You have the rights. The rights are there. You have legal recourse. And we just need to give strength to one another and be willing to assert our rights. And I appreciate it so much that all of you are here today listening. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of you. Godspeed and God bless Kansas.
Way to go. Kris Kobach, ladies and gentlemen, one more time. There he is. There he was. I got an interesting phone call while Kris was speaking from Lynn Wood. Lynn Wood says hello and that he's watching. We sent some video to him. He says, God bless you. I'm going to send him this video as well. Lynn Wood is instituting something called Strike Back for Freedom. Write this website down, this website, strikebackforfreedom.com. It'll give you a chance to register as local communities of patriots. So we're gonna shut down the enemy. We're gonna boycott Amazon. We're gonna boycott NFL. We're gonna boycott all of the enemies, the perpetrators of the enemy. So Lynn Wood's watching. Lynn Wood knows you're here. Thank you very much, Lynn Wood, for your patriotism as well, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so we have now a woman who really doesn't need an introduction. She's really the brains and the chutzpah behind all of this. I would like to bring up to the stage. Wait a minute, I just lost my place. Come on up. You all know Connie. Give a round of applause for Connie. Connie's going to talk to you for a moment, then we'll have our last speaker of the day coming up. We're almost done. Don't forget water. In the blue and up here at front, don't be embarrassed or shy. If you need some water, come up to the front. Yes.
Yes. I want to thank Lauren and all those who put on this big event today. It's a privilege to be here in Johnson County. When we go to Europe or we go to other places and we say we're from Kansas, they say, oh, you mean Kansas City? And I say, no, we're from Kansas. And Kansas City is not Kansas. I did want to say I got up at 6 o'clock this morning got up earlier than 6. I left at 6 this morning to drive here. And I want to give you a happy thought today, and that is that the Department of Transportation likes me. How do I know the Department of Transportation likes me? Because they put signs along the road that are truthful. They say, road work ahead, turn here. They even had a sign that said, buzzed driving kills. And if they don't want even one person to die from buzzed driving, I thought, oh, that's amazing. They don't want one person to die from buzzed driving. So I think I need to tell you, we can hope and pray that Pfizer does not buy out the Department of Transportation. Because if they bought out the Department of Transportation, there would be collateral damage beside the road, there would be broken vehicles, there would be broken people walking beside the road, there would be signs in small print that would say, new engineering trials on this bridge, enter at your own risk. So that would be the Pfizer road system. So we hope that Pfizer does not buy out the Department of Transportation. My child, my choice. It's a bit scary to think that we are gathering here together to defend an ancient idea that is being challenged in today's society. My child, my choice. How many of you have met or know the following? Bill Gates, George Soros, Joe Biden, Dr. Lee Norman, Rochelle Walensky, Laura Kelly, your local county health nurse, your local county commissioner, your local school board member. My guess is that you know some on this list much better than you did 5 years ago. Why is that? Because these are the people and the entities that are saying, your child, my choice. Your child, my voice. They want your child to be their choice. We are saying by this statement, and the title of this event is My Child, My Choice. These are the groups that want to rob you of your God-given role as the caretaker of your child. They want to be sort of a God in your life. The state and county entities which should be upholding and encouraging your right and role to parent your children want you to step aside so they can step in. Can you tell me which of any of these knows your children better than you do? Which of these loves your children more than you do? Not one of these should be saying, your child, my choice. Kansas for Health Freedom started about 2 years ago. We started before the COVID debacle. The founders, including myself and two other women, Debbie Mize, who is here, and many of you know and love Debbie Mize. We started because we saw what was happening in California, where they were taking away medical exemptions. We were paying attention to Connecticut, states on the east and the west coast, and we know what happens on the east and west coast often moves to the center and moves to the Midwest. So we said we should probably do something about this and form something here in Kansas. So we have been able to stand against the hepatitis A and meningitis vaccine mandates, which, of course, they acted like we didn't even exist. We have formed meetup groups all over the state. And in fact, I'm supposed to mention here for Johnson County, so let me do this before I forget. To receive updates on events, meetups, and calls to action in your KSHF Johnson County email list, you need to go to kshfjoco, J-O-C-O, @gmail.com. Please include your first and last name and your county district or zip code, because they're considering how to divide up the different groups here in this county. So we're really happy to have meetup groups so that like-minded people can get together. But basically, KSHF started because we stand in solidarity with the unheard, the vaccine injured, the people who have vaccine, even deceased family members. We believe that in life after birth and all that God intended for that child, and it didn't include being commoditized and victimized by the power brokers who make billions on destroying lives. We actually abhor child sacrifice at any level. KSHF supports the age-old, God-given mandate that gives parents, at least decent parents, the role of raising their children. Parents can choose which and what entities they may use to support them in their role. They may choose to use a private or public school. They may choose football, music, or ballet lessons. They may choose to use a doctor, a chiropractor, or a naturopath, the advice of grandma or a wise person down the street. But it still should boil down to my child, my choice, not my child, your choice. As a founder of KSHF, I could see the writing on the wall a few years ago. Someday, this issue of vaccine propaganda would come to a head. A multi-billion-dollar liability-free industry which has free reign to commoditize the public, an industry whose repeated lies have convinced the public of safe and effective, and has driven the fear of measles, yes, measly measles, into the psyche of people as a deadly, fearsome disease. Yes, eventually, an industry with this much power over people will someday clash with truth, and their demagoguery will be exposed. This has been happening in recent years, way before COVID, and is now brought to much greater light. Too many people have learned and are speaking up. More and more people want vaccine-free, uninjured kids. How many of you want uninjured kids? Amazing. No one here wants a vaccine-injured child? That is a very good thing, in my opinion. Okay. An industry that says your child, our choice, will eventually be found out because that which is done in darkness will come to the light. So now we have had COVID, 18 months of this debacle. Even doctors and researchers are waking up. It has been a tough wake-up, and it has come with a loss of liberty, loss of life, irreparable lifelong injury, premature death. The ball set in motion will continue to roll. Many of us here know that the vaccine industry has a sinister and dark history, especially since 1986, when the law was passed that took all liability away from the manufacturers. But now I believe it is safe to say that we are in a war. And the war isn't about our opinion on vaccines or masks. We are in a war of good versus evil. At risk are not only our children, but our jobs, our livelihoods, our supply chain, our futures, our national unity, our local unity. And it isn't just us. We are mixed up in this mess with the whole world. It is all so big, and it is not always simple. The attack is on us as individuals and as a nation to destroy us socially, mentally, physically, spiritually, to destroy our will, our intellect, our humanness, indeed our very soul. So as we are looking at life and asking ourselves in the words of philosopher Francis Schaeffer, some of you have probably heard of Francis Schaeffer. He wrote the book, How Then Shall We Live? I want to read you this verse out of 2 Chronicles. And I'm going to take some liberty with this scripture. The context here is that what God told them would happen if they forsook him. It says, as for this nation, which I want to say prior to this, though, that the world is looking at the United States. You talk to missionaries and people who live in other countries, they are concerned. about what they see in the United States. It's not just when you're speaking up for your child or you're going to a county commission meeting, you're not doing it just for yourself. You're doing it for others, and you're doing it for the state, and you're doing it for the whole world. As for this nation, which was exalted, everyone who passes by it will be astonished and say, "Why has the Lord done thus to this land and to this house?" And they will say, "Because they forsook the Lord, the God of their fathers, who brought them from the land of Europe, who brought them from the land of Canada, who brought them from the land of South America, who brought them from all over the world. And they adopted other gods and worshiped them and served them. Therefore, he has brought all this adversity on them." And I think that most of us, or many of us, could agree. I'm sorry if I offend you if I'm talking about God, but it doesn't change God's mind. He still likes you anyway. So, I think that first of all, we must regain some equilibrium. It seems to me that to do that, we must recognize that God is over all this. He laughs at the nations. They have an overinflated view of themselves. He is absolutely sovereign, and he isn't surprised by this at all. Since ancient times, nations and people groups have faced trying times. We are not the first. We read that in their distress, they turned to the Lord God, and he let them find him. If you are serious, God will let you find him. If as a nation we are serious, God will let us find him. After 9/11 and after school shootings, everyone turns to God for about 5 minutes. They're not serious. We need God in the good times, and we need him in the hard times. 2 Chronicles says, "Lord, there is no one beside you to help in the battle between the powerful and those who have no strength to help us. O Lord our God, we trust in you, and in your name have come against this multitude. Lord, you are our God. Let not man prevail against you." So it talks about the battle between the powerful and those who have no strength. Most of us here are those without strength, and the powerful have come about us. We are finding our strength against them. It also talks about how God hates partiality and bribery. Has anyone noticed partiality and bribery at all with this COVID debacle? We'll pay you $250 if you get the vaccine, or we'll give you an ice cream cone. Many people are willing to sell their birthright for a pot of porridge. So we need to recognize the sovereignty of God and our need for him. He cares, he knows, he can calm the storm. He can calm the storm with his voice. He says to you, "My child," his voice is calming. Even the weakest and most feeble person can pray. Pray for yourself, your children, your neighbors, your friends, and your family. In Psalms it says, "Who will stand up for me against evildoers? Who will take his stand for me against those who do wickedness?" I can't really tell you exactly how you should take a stand, but I'm going to give you a few ideas. But I will say, not everything is always so simple as take off your mask and don't ask, don't tell. I have 18 grandchildren in public school. I know this is messy, but here are some ideas. And one very important idea is you need to join with those who are like-minded. That's what we're doing here today. Kansas for Health Freedom has the meetup groups, as I mentioned earlier. And in Rob Dreyer's book, how many of you have read his book, Live Not the Lie? Has anyone read his book? He says that in interviewing people from Czechoslovakia and from Soviet Russia, people who came out of this, the one thing they said is you have to align yourself with like-minded people. That is what keeps you going. This is way too big for one individual against everyone else. We have to be aligned with others. Learn how to gracefully, as much as possible, exempt from all mandates. And we've had really good information on exempting ourselves from mandates today. I'm not the lawyer, so, listen to this information again and find your tribe, exempt yourself from mandates. Meet in person and not just on social media. I think this is so important that we assemble in person. People need people, and they don't need them just on social media. Help your child understand the pressures they may face in school. young children. Tell your child, as Del Bigtree did this week on the High Wire, that he is to tell those who apply pressure that they need to speak to his parents. Your young child needs to put the monkey on your back. Your child, your choice. Your child, your responsibility. Beware of all that is going on in your school. You make your child feel safe when you take the burden off of him. Older children, if you have older children, make sure you're listening to them and help them as they navigate the world of being the only one. They need a support team. They need to know they will be influenced and manipulated by an agenda. Pray for your children and with your children. You cannot always be with them, but God is ever present. If your desire is for your children to never be vaccinated without your permission, take a notarized copy of this statement to your school and keep a copy for yourself. You make sure the school knows exactly where you stand because you are hiring the school as a part of your role as a parent in letting them educate your children. For the really courageous, you may want to request from the school the science and the metrics behind the mask mandate and their decisions. Ask them, how many children have died from COVID in your district? I just saw a meme today that said your child is 66,000 more times to be taken in child trafficking than to die from COVID. What compels the mandates in your schools? Most schools will capitulate to anything that has funds attached. You may want a signed statement that says if your child exhibits any unusual symptoms from forced mask wearing, the school has to be willing to be accountable. Doing all this while being polite and respectful will go much further than being demanding and demeaning. My child, my choice should mean my child will know my voice was always respectful and courteous, but I will say, as has been said already, sometimes you do have to be demanding, and every situation is different. You have to remember, a lot of teachers and school people are just, they've drunk the Kool-Aid. They don't know anything else. So maybe God can use you to change some of their minds. Certainly we have lost the comfort of our silence. Please educate not only your children, but all who will listen or not. Give them literature. Kansas for Health Freedom has literature. Pass it around. Leave it in stores, public bathrooms, and nurseries. Put some of those signs in your yard. Someday the people who are bashing you now may come to you weeping. If you like public speaking, ask for opportunities. Your local radio station, your local church group, your gardening group, book club, chamber of commerce, city council, school board, coffee group. Wear t-shirts that are movable billboards for truth. Support KSHF and other groups who are financially that are trying to get the truth to you. I encourage you to listen to the High Wire. How many of you listen to the High Wire? Okay, great. Del Bigtree would be proud. Listen to the High Wire and sound advice from other trusted news sources. In a much smaller way, it might be good to know a little bit about what other people are hearing so that you can discuss with them. Know that KSHF has a community Facebook page, 2 minutes, okay? A private page and a website. So go there. There's guidance info on how to do some of these things to avoid these things. So in summary, be bold, be humble, be convinced, be teachable, be kind. Remember, you were probably at one time on the side of your opponent. The person who hates you today may need you tomorrow. The enemy here is not flesh and blood, but world forces of darkness, spiritual forces of wickedness. It is not their child, their choice. Stand for your children and grandchildren, the born and the unborn. My children, my choice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Connie. Ladies and gentlemen, Adrienne Foster is coming up. She's a second-generation Kansan whose grandparents immigrated here in the early 1900s, and they did it legally. Thank you very much. They did it legally. Adrienne really needs no introduction. She and Lorna have created such a great event. We're happy that all of you have answered the call that she has put to you. Ladies and gentlemen, Adrienne Foster. Here she is.
Well, good afternoon, Patriots.
It is so wonderful to be here with you guys today. Sorry, I have to get everything together here. Okay, so I know it's really hot out there, and it's so great that we have such great shade over here. I do want to do a few housekeeping, though. If you have any kind of trash, we have some black trash bags up here in the front. So before you leave, please pick up after yourself. We greatly appreciate it. So my name again is Adrienne Foster. Some may know me. I used to be a former mayor of Roland Park. I call it USSR Roland Park right now, also known as Rainbow Park right now. It's gone badly. But I believe America is great because we have our freedom. Does everybody agree with me on that? That's right. I know many of us are tired of being canceled, are tired of being censored, and I know many of you, like myself, wear the badge of honor of being in Facebook timeout. But we live in the United States of America, and we have a Constitution that allows us to have the freedom of speech and the freedom to assemble. And we're displaying both of those things yet today. So thank you. Thank you for your patriotism. I can tell you that there's a great resource. It's a free resource. We always need to improve on our knowledge of the Constitution. But if you go onto Hillsdale College website, you can take a free Constitution 101 class. It's got 6 series to it, and it really will empower you. If you're getting ready to go to speak to a school board, a city council, or county commission, which many of you I know have been doing, and that's one of our calls for action today. I'm here to encourage you to use our QR codes that are out here front. These QR codes, if you don't know how to use them, you just take your phone, your smartphone, you put it on camera, put it in front of the QR code, and it comes up with a website. And it's going to come up with United Voices of Kansas website. And that Laura Klingsmith was talking about earlier today. She was talking about the phone numbers. It's got the dates of when school boards meet. We need to make sure that all those resources are in your hand today. So, I do not subscribe to the Kansas City Star. However, I read their headlines every morning, and our governor, Lawless Laura, there's so many other names I have for her I won't get into, but Lawless Laura has a headline in the Kansas City Star this morning that says this: Governor Kelly has an article that says, leaders are spreading virus misinformation. Your actions hurt your neighbors. Lawless Laura. Well, Governor, which I want to call you all the names that I want to. Your actions are killing your neighbors by holding back hydroxychloroquine, by bribing college students with hundreds of dollars to get the jab. I don't want anyone to call the COVID vaccine a vaccine. It is not a vaccine. So, we need to send a message to Lawless Laura. And that's this: do not get comfortable. We are coming for you next November. And go ahead, order your moving truck, because as our 45th president said, you're fired. By being here today, you've taken the first step to standing up for freedom. You are our lions, and the lions sleep no more. My good friend Virginia Crossland has this wonderful trailer made in America. And she's got these Lions Not Sheep hats. She's got Lions Not Sheep shirts. And the more this message gets out, the better we will be, because it's all in the language. So please, I can't stress enough, do not use the word vaccine. It is not a vaccine. Use injection and use jab. And I just want everybody else to also know that we have been streaming this live on Facebook. It is on United Voices of Kansas, and it is on Watch Kansas. And I have to do a shout out real quick to Tracy Ramey from KCK. She is our streamer today. Please go on her Facebook. If you have not gone to Watch Kansas, please do that. This video will also be archived and be accessible. So I know that Kris Kobach gave some great statutes. Laura Klingsmith also gave some great statutes. Our purpose today was to provide you with resources to arm our Army. That's why these QR codes are so important. There is so much information in those QR codes. It is information. We always say knowledge is power. Well, we got to get smarter than the Democrats. I can tell you that right now. So we want your voice to be heard today. So one of the things I want you guys to do is, if you have not, please do the QR code. And I want everyone to email and or call your county commissioner and or your school board member. And to talk about school boards, I know we have many school board individuals that are running for office. And we really appreciate you. And we are going to we're going to help you create your army so you can go door to door and so you can walk. That is very important as well. Another thing is hold on one second. Got to turn my page real quick. So how are we going to preserve our freedom today? Number one, having your voice heard by sending an email or phone call, or show up at a city council meeting, a board of county commissioner meeting, or a school board meeting. We can no longer sit aside and be quiet. Conservatives are very good about just staying home. We cannot do that anymore. You guys are lions in heart. I know, I see many of you, and you are lions at heart, but we need action. We can't sit back anymore. Another way that you can help is by helping someone who represents your values and replace a bad apple on the city council, the county commission, or school board. We need more of us in leadership positions. That is very important. Another way is voting. Every vote counts. Your vote is more important than ever. And so it is important. If you are not registered to vote, then you make sure you go get registered to vote. Make sure your grandchildren, your children, everyone that you know is registered to vote. Voting also includes how you spend your money. You heard that today. Amazon, whoever. Look at the companies who are supporting the taking away of our freedoms and stop spending money there. It's very hard, I know it is, but that is very important. So lastly, my last advice to all of you is from a good friend of mine, AJ. He always ends his emails this way, and I'm going to end mine tonight. Defy, do not comply. So some last housekeeping. When you upload the QR code, be sure to save it in your bookmarks so that when you're not in front of the QR code, it's saved on your phone. We really do need to help support United Voices of Kansas. If you would be so kind and come over and buy a shirt for $10, that's what helps pay to put rallies on like this. We want you to support Our businesses, especially Watch Kansas, thank you so much again for your help today. And lastly, I want you to do this, and this is usually out of everyone's comfort zones, but you're around a lot of people that you probably don't know. Introduce yourself to at least 3 people before you leave. Introduce yourself to 3 people before you leave, because we're only 6 degrees away from each other, but it's important that we step out of our comfort zones. There are many, many, many more patriots, and we're going to need an army because they have one. We appreciate everyone being here today. God bless you. God bless America.
Adrienne Foster, ladies and gentlemen, one more time. Thank you, Adrienne. Ladies and gentlemen, we can't thank you enough for coming out here today. I want to remind you of a few things before we leave. Some of you asked me when I came up here before, strikebackforfreedom.com. Linwood has an entire list and a collage of all of the companies that we will be boycotting and fighting back against because they have a part in stealing our republic from us. Strikebackforamerica.com. Finally, we are the party of many things. We're the party of life. We're the party of liberty, hope, the Constitution. We're the party of traditional family values. And we are also the party that cleans up after ourselves. Don't forget to find the nearest trash can. We are not the left-leaning mob, and we will, again, meet together on this stage or another in the fight together. The battle is us. The plan is us. We, the people, are the solution to the nightmare in which we find ourselves today. God bless you, everyone. Thanks again to all of our speakers, to Adrienne, to Laura, to the United Voices of Kansas and Kansans for Help Freedom. Thank you. God bless you. Have a good weekend.
You'll also find that tomorrow there is another rally by Mass Choice for Kids. There's also a Gardner School Board meeting, a very important school board meeting, Monday at 6 p.m. And there is also this afternoon a volunteer roundup at 2 o'clock at the Olathe Library Boardroom for those that are interested in walking for individuals running for office in Johnson County. Thank you.